I took 15 Royal Caribbean cruises in 2024, and among all of them, there were a few that absolutely stood out and one that I would not care to repeat again. So today, I want to rank my cruises I took with Royal Caribbean last year up next. Hey everyone, it's Matt from RoyalCaribbeanBlog.com. If you're like me, you're always thinking when you go on a cruise, how does this really compare to the last one? And while every cruise is certainly unique, and in fact, even if you and I were on the same ship together, we could have vastly different experiences because cruises are very subjective and they're based on your experience. But that being said, it's still kind of fun to look back on and rank each of these cruises and how they stack up against each other. So today, I've got my cruise rankings from my cruises I took last year. I've got my top 5 cruises I took and one that really stood out as kind of a dud. The absolute best cruise I took in 2024 on Royal Caribbean was a 7-night cruise in Europe on Anthem of the Seas to Spain and France. This was a 7-night cruise, and this was my second European sailing. Now, this goes all the way up to number 1, even beating out some ships you thought I was going to make number 1 because of the amazing itinerary that's involved. Going to Europe has really opened my eyes to all the possibilities of cruising beyond simply the Caribbean. For many, many years, I only cruised the Caribbean, but going to France and Spain and sailing out of Southampton here for the second time was incredible. I really love cruising out of Europe, and if you haven't tried it yet, it's really neat. In fact, this itinerary, Spain and France, is actually not one of the more popular ones. I would say it's probably one of the worst European itineraries out there, but nonetheless, it was a really cool experience because of the places we got to go. I went to places like Bordeaux, France, and Paris, France, and going to places in Spain like Bilbao and La Coruña was really surprising because I really didn't know what to expect, but all of these cities were absolutely beautiful. They were stunning, they had great history, amazing culture, and yes, even better food involved altogether. When it comes to your European cruise, it's got to be on your bucket list, and in fact, I'm going back to Europe not only this year in 2025, but also I've already got Legend of the Seas booked for 2026 in Europe. It's something Americans really should be checking out. Number 2 is actually Icon of the Seas, but not the cruise you think I was going to pick. Many of you thought I was going with the Inaugural, but actually, I'm going to go with Icon of the Seas, 7-night Western Caribbean cruise that I took in July, and that was because it was Icon, brand new ship, and a Royal Caribbean Blog group cruise. We do 2 group cruises a year in which I invite each and every one of you to join me for it, and in this case, we were on Icon of the Seas. And what made this absolutely amazing was that we had some of the best entertainment ever on this particular cruise, and we were on Icon of the Seas to boot. I think it helped that in this case, this was my second time on Icon of the Seas after the Inaugural. I really came into this sailing well prepared, knowing what to expect, and to bring my family with me because it was their first time experiencing Icon. But more than that, it was really the great entertainment. Icon had Kevin Phillip in the pub, Jennifer Hart in the schooner bar, and as part of our group cruise, we had Darla Fox as our featured entertainer just for our group. It was just an incredible vacation. Actually, as I recall now, this cruise was supposed to go to the Eastern Caribbean, but because of a tropical development, we went Western. And you know what? It ended up being even a better cruise because we had an amazing time going to places in Mexico. The reason why this Icon sailing is so far up high on my list is because of the fact that cruises are better with friends. When you go on a cruise and you're bringing friends or family or people that you know, it really makes a difference in enhancing your cruise. Now, you can have a great time without knowing anybody on the ship, but it makes it that much better when you do have friends and you can share in the experience. Number 3 was Liberty of the Seas. In this case, it was a 5-night Bermuda cruise out of New York, well, really New Jersey, to Bermuda. And the reason why I really like this cruise is we had absolutely perfect weather. I've been to Bermuda before, but because we were sailing in June, and it was actually early June, the weather was absolutely perfect. Unlike cruises we've taken in the past to Bermuda later in the summer, where the heat and humidity are really oppressive, here it was absolutely stunning. And on top of that, we also, I think, really picked well with our excursions. I've talked about in other videos that one of the best excursions I've ever done was to actually charter a catamaran for an evening sailing. Because, of course, in Bermuda, you're oftentimes, in fact, I think every time, staying overnight in Bermuda. And we got a catamaran to take us around, and it was absolutely fantastic. Seeing the sunset, being able to feed some fish along the way, and even going for an evening swim. It was just like the perfect shore excursion, and I absolutely loved it. But then you also have Bermuda, which is a beautiful island to visit. Lots of great culture and history, great restaurants. I like it because it mixes both beach stuff and city stuff as well. So it's not just all beach or all city. There's a really good mix of both. At number 4 on my list, we're going to go with Utopia of the Seas, but again, not the inaugural sailing on this. In this case, this is a 3-night sailing in October of 2024 on Utopia, and the reason why this made the list is because it was the time I got to finally try the Ultimate Family Suite. The Ultimate Family Suite is a cabin I've always wanted to try, but like many of you, I saw the price and then went, I don't think I'm going to be booking that. But in this case, we were looking at cruises well in advance for Utopia, and considering it was a 3-night cruise and we'd booked it well in advance, the price for this cabin was reasonably expensive. I mean, it's still stupid expensive, don't get me wrong, but it was, in the grand scheme of things, a little more reasonable. For this 3-night sailing, I paid $12,609 for my family of 4 to stay here. But again, just like that cruise on Icon of the Seas, we had a lot of friends. This wasn't a group cruise. It just ended up being a sailing in which we knew a lot of friends on board the ship. And that made a huge difference because not only were we able to enjoy the room, we were able to share it with our friends and invite them over. And we had a great group in our room on embarkation day. We had a fun time in the hot tub, and we just got to enjoy everything this room has to offer. This room is stupid expensive, and I'm going to bet 99% of the time it's out of your price range, because that's exactly what it is for me. Ever since I've stayed in this room, I've looked back, can we possibly get back in it? And I see the price, and it's just a little too much out there. But if you ever get the chance, my goodness, it's incredibly simple. The family suite has 3 bedrooms, 3 full bathrooms, a large living room, playroom, movie room. There are 2 levels, and of course, there is a giant slide right in the middle. It's an incredible cabin, and I thought maybe it would be a little too nichey. Like after like an hour in there, the novelty would wear off. I can promise you that was not the case at all. My kids loved it. I enjoyed it way more than I thought I would, but it really is an incredible room to stay in. Considering how many bedrooms there are, if you could possibly split the cost with 2 or 3 parties, it might actually not be a terrible value. If again, you can split the price, get it for a decent sailing, and of course the fact that we're going in October, which is the peak of hurricane season, did help our cause for getting a better price. And number 5 on the list are the 2 sailings you probably thought were going to be at number 1 and number 2, and that are the inaugural sailings on both Icon of the Seas and Utopia of the Seas. Anytime you can go on an inaugural sailing, it is a big party on board. Royal Caribbean really celebrates the arrival of a ship, and with an inaugural sailing, it's a big celebration. You've got executives on board. You've got tons of Royal Caribbean superfans on there, and everybody knows that it's a big deal because it's a new ship. There's nothing bigger than that in the cruise industry than bringing a new ship online. And with Icon of the Seas, my goodness, the level of anticipation, hype, and excitement has never reached a level that I've ever seen like that before at any other ship. It was incredible, and it was so much fun, not only exploring the ship for the very first time, but also sharing in that celebration with other people around me. And it was just that kind of experience you can only get with a brand new ship that's also the first in its class. But even when I went on Utopia of the Seas for her inaugural sailing later in the year, it was still a really great celebration. People love going on these sailings, and what's great for me is I get a chance to not only go on a brand new ship, but also get to meet a lot of other super Royal Caribbean fans. If you're watching this video, that's probably you, someone who really enjoys cruising a lot, and you get to meet other people who, quote unquote, get it. It really makes a big difference, and it's just basically a giant floating party. Even when you go on the second sailing, the fever pitch that you get on that sailing is not nearly like the first one. There's just something about that first sailing with all that excitement that really culminates into a great, great cruise. So now you're wondering, what is the worst sailing I did in 2024? And that was Voyager of the Seas, 5-night Western Caribbean cruise out of Port Canaveral. The reason why this was not my favorite cruise of all time is because, unfortunately, my wife got sick on board. We actually were supposed to do a back-to-back sailing, but we ended up canceling the second sailing and only going on the first one because, of course, she wasn't feeling well. Now, getting sick on a cruise is never fun. It happened to me when I was on Serenade of the Seas in 2022 in Alaska, and I had COVID, and once again, we had the same issue where we had a back-to-back, but ended up not going on the second sailing, and instead getting off the ship after just one sailing. The good news is she was fine. It was just the flu, but at the time, it's really hard to know, are you just basically going to be stuck in the room because you just don't feel good? And while I was feeling fine and my kids were feeling fine, it was kind of a no-win situation. My wife wasn't feeling good, so if I went out and was having fun, I felt guilty about it. But if I stayed in the room with her as sympathy, well, she feels guilty about that. Neither of us are having a good time. But moreover, we just weren't sure how this was going to play out. What if someone else got sick on board the ship? At the end of the day, it's easier to be sick at home than on a ship. And so we decided to go home. Now, of course, we have travel insurance, and we activated that and got that taken care of. So that's always a good thing to have in the back of your mind, that you're not really, out that money, so to speak, because that's what travel insurance is all about. Nonetheless, we were able to cancel the cruise and take advantage of the travel insurance. But really, anytime you're sick on a cruise ship, it's just not fun. It can happen anywhere, by the way. I mean, you never know where you can get sick. You can get sick in cities, buses, your hometown. It's not a reason to stop traveling, but unfortunately, it does happen from time to time. And when it does occur, it really just puts a damper on the cruise experience. Well, there you have it, my rankings of my cruises from last year on Royal Caribbean. Let me know in the comments below, what was your favorite cruise of 2024? Let me know down there below. While you're below our video, hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and turn on notifications. That way, YouTube lets you know when we have a brand new video to share. Notifications, by the way, are the little bell icon right next to the subscribe button, so make sure you have that on. Thanks for watching. This has been Matt from RoyalCaribbeanBlog.com, and we'll talk again real soon.